Some people will quite like the idea, but in fact it will turn out to be an economic disaster for this country. Here are 3 reasons why. A mention tax would yield very little revenue for the government, perhaps £1 billion, which is basically a rounding error given the size of the budget deficit. But not only would it bring in very little money, it would inflict huge economic pain on the country. France has got its own version of a mention tax. The result has been catastrophic. Thousands and thousands of people have left the country. They've taken their businesses with them, their money with them. Many of them have actually moved to London. We'd face the same exodus if we imposed our own mention tax, and lots of jobs would be lost in the UK, and the country would be much poorer for it. A mention tax would also be deeply unfair. People who live in expensive houses, perhaps houses they've owned for decades, and who are currently pensioners and therefore have a limited income, would not be able to afford it. They'd have to sell up. The only people who could actually afford to pay the mention tax are people who earn a lot of money or people with vast savings. In other words, it's not based on the ability to pay in terms of cash flow, it's merely based on where you happen to live, on which property you might have bought a few decades ago. It's a deeply unfair tax that doesn't affect people equally. There's a profound philosophical objection to the idea of a mention or wealth tax. Private property ought to be just that. It ought to be somebody's property, not something that they have to ask for permission to keep or something for which they have to pay rent to the government every year. That's basically what a mention tax would do. It would terminate freehold property and make all homes in the UK leasehold properties, with the government effectively owning the lease, and that will transform the foundation and undermine the basis for our capitalist economy. It will be very bad news indeed.